Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, June is well underway and today we are going to be taking a look at skill top 10 champions. So I do these ranking videos twice a year for several years now, and it has slowly turned into a whole thing. But as always, please do remember that these lists are a mixture of my personal views in the game plus current game relevance and trends. I do take a look at champion performance in Alliance War, in overall general questing, and in Battlegrounds as the main indicators of it. Obviously, again, there is a certain level of subjectivity involved in it, and as it's unavoidable because I do not have hard statistical data in front of me. And with that, keep in mind that we all have different tastes, different preferences in playstyles, mastery setups that we use, um, and so on and so forth. And all of those obviously would affect these rankings in general. That said, do not miss your opportunity to win $100 for July 4th, and it is super easy to enter. Just be a subscriber of my channel, go to my in-game profile, duel me in-game, take a screenshot, submit that screenshot in the video, in the link that you will find in the video description below. You have until July 2nd to enter, and the result will be posted on July 4th. Huge thank you to Evizone for organizing this, and there will be 3 $100 winners. Best of luck to everybody. And now it's time to take a look at the skill champions. Here we have the old rankings list that I did 6 months ago. Kingpin, Nick Fury, Shang-Chi, Masakra, Valkyrie, Moleman, Falcon, Hitmonkey, Stealth Spider, and Black Cat. And this time around, skill actually has changed quite significantly because we have had several champions that have just flourished in the contest. Several champions that unfortunately do not make the list anymore, even though they could be very, very close. And I will have special 3 kind of like honorary mentions that likely would have made the top 10 list in virtually any other class that we have covered so far, but they just do not quite cut it, and it's a shame because I really like several of those champions myself. Right. All that put aside, let's jump into Auntmay, to Auntmay website and get started. So the champions that unfortunately just barely missed out, and they would be spot number 11, 12, and 13 respectively. And I fully see why people will want them to be in top 10 as well, but they just did not quite make it. We're going to start number 1 with Stealth Suit Spidey, who has definitely made quite significant comeback in Battlegrounds specifically. And also, Stealth Spidey is kind of like a best kept secret at the moment because with a couple of his new synergies, if you are using him in questing content, he is an absolute menace. It starts with the Scorpion synergy, where evading and dodging an attack also causes Spider-Man's web cartridge debuffs to be paused. And with that, you're basically effectively able to run your Ender Weight and completely, lock opponent's power from combat power rate. And then there was another synergy where evading or dodging purifies 1 debuff, so you can run him with Liquid Courage Double Edge and just use him as a debuff purifier as well. So in questing scenarios, he has become extremely powerful, even with recall masteries, and obviously he has seen significant use in Battlegrounds, and that would be good enough of a reason for him to make top 10 list in most of the other classes. But since skill is getting so jacked and so competitive, unfortunately, he just quite misses it out. And the same thing goes for Hitmonkey, because the main thing that Hitmonkey has got going on for him is he is a Battlegrounds nuke, and he is one of the most compatible Battlegrounds nukes with Liquid Courage. Double Edge Master is active. So if that is your strategy, then without a doubt, you will value Hitmonkey tremendously high. And he does his job perfectly fine. He's quite versatile. He covers a multitude of tricky and difficult matchups. You can use him against Doctor Doom and things and whatnot. But outside of Battlegrounds, again, we do not really see him used that much. Hence, he just misses out the top 10. And the last champion that misses out top 10, and I really wish I would have included, is Black Cat, because Black Cat is in a very similar position where she has a very favorable matchup against a lot of very hard opponents. But outside of Battlegrounds, you don't really see her putting in all that much yet. And even in Battlegrounds now in skill class, we have kind of like a bit fast and nukier options. Absolutely love Black Cat. One of the most satisfying champions to play with. but I just think that she's getting slightly outcompeted in several areas of the game, but still tremendously amazing champion. Right, let's jump into spot number 10. And spot number 10 will go to oldie but goldie, Falcon himself. Now, Falcon is kind of like a staple of defensive ability accuracy reduction champion. And the best and most awesome thing about Falcon is that you reduce opponents' defensive ability accuracy by 100%, potentially from the very first hit of the fight, and you can do an entire fight without, ever striking them when their abilities would trigger. And that gives tremendous value. Obviously, he is present and useful in battlegrounds. He is also present and useful in Alliance War. And he is also one of those champions that people often use to deal with specific problem fights. He is quite versatile. Obviously, there are downsides. He's not necessarily as fast as some of the champions mentioned here before. But again, compared to all of the champions that we're going to discuss here, he is virtually the only champion at the moment in the game that completely shuts down opponents' abilities at large from the very first hit of the fight, as in like generic defensive ability accuracy reduction. We do have some other situations where that can happen. For instance, Magneto with max pacify mastery, or we can have Nebula against robots if you get your charges up, and a handful of other situations, but it is extremely rare and it is extremely valuable. And he's never really kind of like the shiniest or the most coveted, I would say, but he is one of those champions that puts in work time and time again across the years. And there are times when he gets more popular based on Alliance War metas or Battlegrounds metas. There are times when he goes down in popularity slightly, but he is always one of those champions that's worth keeping an eye out for. Therefore, it is also really awesome that we do have a 7-star Falcon now, because obviously that's going to just give him even more popularity and attention, especially if you do manage to get him duped, since he doesn't really need that sig ability to be that high. I mean, it helps, but even just Awakened already there is a massive difference. And yeah, I'm putting in Falcon at number 10. For number 9, I am going to give to my boy, my ball boy. And Mallboy has slid down the rankings, and we do see him used less. We still see him in Alliance Wars, both offensively and defensively. We still see him in Battlegrounds, and he's much better Battlegrounds defender than a lot of people give him credit for. And we definitely do see him in questing. There's tons to like, guaranteed critical hits, excellent synergy with recoil masteries, access to shock, access to a ton of bleeds, very large crits on level 2. And obviously also tenacity abilities if need be. However, there is just no escaping it. That bug fix, tune down, call it what you will, it did hurt him a lot. Because getting rid of true accuracy made him much, much worse evade counter than he was before. You basically now have to absolutely choose whether you want counter evades or you want damage. Same thing goes for auto block. And that was the best thing going on for him. When you had to deal with an evade champion, an auto block champion, he was one of the best options in a game, because you could do a lot of damage, finish the fights at a fast pace, which is often important, and counter evade an auto block. And Kabam took that away from him after several years. And that has massively impacted his value. Now, he's still a good champion, but make no mistake, pre-nerf version of Mallman would be much, much, much higher on the list and would be much, much more present in the game. And do what you will with that information. He's still a good champion. He still does awesome things when it comes to, stacking up debuffs or purifying a ton of debuffs at the beginning of the fight. And he's useful. I still use him as a rank 4 skill champion in Battlegrounds. I personally still quite frequently do put him in my deck, even as my deck is getting, bigger and bigger. But he's not what he once was, and it's always a shame. It's always a bit sad. But here we are. Still a very, very good skill champion. Very useful and present in the game. Now, moving on, spot number 8. And spot number 8, I'm kind of going out on a limb now. Spot number 8. I'll give it to Baron Zemo. I'm not 100% sure how much he deserves it or how much it is a still residue hype. Especially since he is getting a tune down and many of the coolest things that he does, well, many of the coolest matchups that he does or interactions will be taken away with that change to passive armor. He is solid. He's quite good. He's somewhat of a ramp-up champion. For me personally, I initially had Smallman placed above him, but I think too many people would rage, or that might be me underestimating Zemo. But in all reality, I have seen some very impressive clips from Zemo, obviously. But the same thing, everything that I saw Zemo does, or most of the things, I also figured Molman does quite similar and about as well, and probably faster, because yeah, you can give Zemo a skill boost and then you can, root lock the opponent. But with Molman, you give him a skill boost and he's just gonna do back-to-back guaranteed critical level 2s to finish up the fight super quick. Zemo can stack up a lot of bleeds, Molman can stack up a lot of bleeds, you know what I mean? But ultimately, there is more in Zemo's kit, even though I do believe in most of the situations he is slower than Molman. Especially if there are debuffs involved, and Molman also gets quicker. There are still, obviously, the defensive capabilities, which again, I think they're relatively tied. I think once you practice to fight against Zemo, he isn't that big of a problem. And Molman is better for, stalling the fights out and preventing you striking his block. That can often be really detrimental in several metas. But there are the disorients that Zemo can start stacking with his level 1. There's obviously the root mechanic, the infinite debuffs, which are obviously useful against abilities and nodes that make debuffs expire quicker. Zemo's cleanse, again, I think is better than Molman now, because yeah, you can run out after 5, but will come back, and probably quicker than Molman's. So ultimately, I think Zemo and Molman are very close by. And yes, obviously there are some very cool things about Zemo, but yeah, for me personally, I like Molman better. But it doesn't mean that Molman is bad. And if I look at the ability list, at the very least, on paper, Zemo could take it. And this one, I haven't had the most experience with Zemo, so I'm kind of giving him a benefit of doubt at the moment. Even though at the same time, I have seen more and more people be less impressed with Zemo. Alright, anyways, let's move on to a happier spot. Spot number 7. And spot number 7 is a champion that was a bit of a late bloomer, and that is Crossbones. Crossbones is undoubtedly getting more and more popular. Part of the reason is obviously because it's also easier to sig him up and get that 90% purify chance, which is, quite reliable, and that obviously increases his speed. Ultimately, he's primarily kind of claim to fame came through Battlegrounds, because he is a very, very solid champion for a ton of tricky matchups, many of whom you wouldn't necessarily think he is as good as he would be, like Hercules or The Thing and stuff like that. And he also can do Korg well enough. And he has been getting a lot of kind of like surprise or shocking wins in a sense. And because of his increase in Battlegrounds, we just see him used more elsewhere, especially if those people have invested in him, gotten him high sig. I have seen rank 5 Crossbones running around, a ton of rank 4 Crossbones. And especially when there's any meta at all whatsoever where there are some debuffs involved, then Crossbones just get supercharged as well. And in general, I do think that he is kind of still largely slept on by the community, given the fact that he is reliable, he is tanky. Yes, you do need to be confident and comfortable using him. Need win those heavy attacks in between your level 1s and all that other stuff. But once you kind of get more comfortable with Crossbones, you can get out tremendous results. And I do think he is better as a skill champion than most of the community realize or understands. And I kind of slept on him for quite a while as well, because of one of the metas I think in Battlegrounds. I ended up taking him to rank 4, and I absolutely love the fact that I have. So, Crossbones is up here in spot number 7. He's actually a newcomer, just like Zemo, to the top 10. I did not include him in my top 10 in the previous list, but it's quite frankly because I underestimated him. And, you know, I'm not the type of content creator who always insists on being right or knowing everything the best. And this was one of those things where I just didn't value him highly enough. And I see that now, and hence he's in 7th spot. Now, spot number 6 is going to be a slight decrease in the skill rankings. It's going to go to Masakra. Masakra previously was in 4th, but it is really to no fault of his own. Masakra has been performing exactly how I thought he would be. We do see him present in Alliance Wars, especially present in Battlegrounds as one of the fastest attackers in Battlegrounds, pretty much available. And the coolest thing is he's much, much more versatile than people realize. The fact that you can take things and Rintras and, well, Dr. Dooms and what have you, Absorbing Mans if you want, with him is absolutely tremendous. The amount of matchups that this guy just runs through is crazy. And again, his rise to claim, just like Crossbones, kind of came through Battlegrounds first and then bled to the rest of the contest. And now he is one of the more banned, one of the scariest attackers in Battlegrounds. And obviously, those people who have realized his potential in Battlegrounds are using him across the entire game, myself included, one of the champions that I have taken to rank 4. One of the champions that actually has gotten a dedicated clip to himself. And what does having a dedicated clip means? It means that he is one of the more used defensive champions I have in my deck, standing alongside Kingpin, Havoc, Juggernaut for me, and you know, that's impressive in its own right. But all that joking put aside, yeah, he just happens to take a ton of really tricky matchups very fast. And that's the biggest upside of him, and that's also one of the major reasons why, in my opinion, he's about just like a plain BG nuke, because there are a lot of BG nukes. You know, you can go and start listing Gamora and Sunspot and this and that and that. But why Masakra is better is just because he takes widest variety of opponents with the fastest speed, basically. And Masakra is faster than Valkyrie, just so we get that clear. Valkyrie is more versatile, but I'd argue, but Masakra is definitely faster. Right, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is going to be a champion that never just clicked with me. Champion that I really liked when he got released. And I used him fair amount. I just never really clicked with him. I still recognize that he is a very good champion, without a doubt. Again, another skill champion that's really compatible with Liquid Courage Double Edge due to his Purify ability, is one of the best slow abilities in the game, and obviously access to unblockable, access to reliable stuns, and ability to land heavy attacks, guaranteed crits on level 2. All that stuff is very good, very versatile attacker, and hence, even though I'm personally not the biggest fan of the champion, I definitely value him highly. He is a scary attacker. He is useful again in Battlegrounds and Alliance War, in ton of questing in Act 6, 7, and 8, and also different challenge type mode content. And I still use him. I do have a 6-star rank 3. Haven't taken him to rank 4 as of yet, but probably will do at some point in future. And he definitely is one of those skill champions that's very well put together. He has a really solid base set of kit. I can't say that he has like the most versatility of his applications, but there's a lot. Obviously, the cleanse mechanics, the purify mechanics, the stuns, the unblockable, the slow, guaranteed crits, access to buffs as well, quite important as skill champion. Sometimes can be a disadvantage, but still relatively not super common in skill class. So there is that, and yeah, a man is just putting in work, especially if you are in like Alliance War questing situation. Put on a skill power back boost, and happy days. Right. But here we are. He is, however, losing a couple of spots. Because I do think that at the moment there are more relevant skill champions, and those are the 4 skill champions that are ahead of this guy. And with that, we need to jump in spot number 4, which I'm going to give it to Kate. I think Kate has made one of the strongest introductions so far in the game that we have had this year. Kate has not been in this contest for a very, very long time. As we can see, Kate came out at 30th of March. It's been like 3 months or so since she has been in contest, but she's a champion that everybody wants if they don't have one already. And if you do have one already, everybody's ranking her up and everybody's using her for Alliance War, for questing, for battlegrounds, pretty much everywhere. And why is that? And that is because she's amazing. One of the kind of, I think, most understated bits of her power is coming from the fact that she delivers her damage as damage over time passive. And that is not common in this game at all. Passive effects are still significantly more rare than debuffs. And passive effect of this potency, that is her cold snap, is extremely uncommon in the game. And as an end result, she just bypasses a ton of defensive mechanics like nobody's business. Any type of, damage cap nodes or whatever would prevent you from hitting harder, or champions with like big physical resistances or armors or something like that. All of this just gets through. And again, another really cool thing is that it's passive. So none of the purification nodes work on it. None of the drag off abilities work on it. Nodes that make debuffs expire quicker do not work on it. And that opens up a ton of possible scenarios where it is just like a perfect counter, because on top of having that cold snap, which again, not many people necessarily automatically realize it, cold snap does shut down opponent's ability to evade, and you can easily maintain cold snap on the opponent 100% of the time after your special attack 1. That means you easily shut down opponent's evade, and she is one of the better evade counters in the game as well. She has ability to bypass miss. She can stop opponent from dropping debuffs on you, which is also quite useful. Then she has Caltrops, and here is one cool thing that a lot of people don't know about Caltrops. Caltrops is also classed as bleed damage. So there are many nodes that, for instance, require you to do bleed damage in order to unlock your full damage potential and stuff like that. And Caltrops is bleed, so you can use that. For instance, this side event that we are currently having this month, in the month of June, there is a node where, unless you have a bleed effect on opponent, you do 90% less damage. You can just drop on the Caltrops debuff on the opponent, bait out heavy attacks, and they will kill themselves super quickly. So keep that in mind. The Caltrops is bleed damage, and she obviously has also fragility, arrow. Ultimately, another thing that helps her tremendously is the fact that she does have an AI manipulation built in her kit. Whenever the opponent is cornered, they are much more likely to throw a special attack, which makes her easier to be used on a ton of nodes where, baiting out special attacks might be an issue, or there's an extra power gain involved, like power snack metas and nodes, or champions with extra power gain, and so on and so forth. So ultimately, there's just not much else to say. Kate has been putting in work in every single game mode. There are extremely huge expectations of this young lady on top of the amazing results that she has already presented to us in the game. And she is one of the best champions released this year. As I said in my Mystic video, credit where credit is due. Daddy Longlegs DLL has designed and released 2 champions that we are accustomed to, and both of them are absolute bangers, and both of them are extremely useful. So initially I did not expect to like Kate as much, but I do, and she's awesome. And yeah, I'm not gonna say much else than that about Kate. Puts in work, well worth the learning curve, well worth the investment. Do not sleep on it. Moving on to spot number 3. And I think in spot number 3, we're going to talk about a champion that arguably has had the biggest success in establishing her at the top of the game. And she is one of the best champions in the game currently. There is no walking around it. There are some comparisons with Quake, obviously, because of her ability to effectively finish fights without ever striking the opponent, just hitting their block. And that comes with a ton of advantages, because if you just strike the opponent's block, there are a ton of abilities that will not trigger. If you just strike the opponent's block, you give them less power as well. And that, again, in itself is a kit of utility where, opponents throwing special attacks causes problems. If you just strike opponents and block, you disable a ton of nodes. If you just strike them in a block, you also do not really need to worry about Mystic Dispersion pretty much ever, because you do not have any buffs expiring, even if you dex. And there are more and more and more advantages of it. Fact of the matter is that after her release, slowly but surely, she effectively proved herself to be one of the top tier Alliance War attackers. Then she proved herself to be one of the top tier Battlegrounds attackers. And then now she's proving herself to be one of the top tier questing champions for kind of like trickier and harder and challenging content, to a point where if I would have to pick 5 champions to go in blind in a quest, there's quite high chance I'd pick in Valkyrie, I think. Because of how much stuff she bypasses with her ability to hit opponents and block. Obviously, that does not necessarily mean that she's top 5 in the game, but I don't think she's that far off either. And I definitely will see her added to the top 20 in the game list somewhere, because she is. At the moment, she is one of the 20 best champions in the game, hands down. If you don't have Valkyrie, start hunting for one. If you do have Valkyrie unranked, rank her up. If she's low sig her up, because I didn't even mention her ability to go stun immune and ignore unstoppable effects, which is awesome. And everything else about her, yeah, there's tons of videos about her already out. Check them out, learn how to use her, and you will be better off. And another cool thing about Valkyrie is she's also one of those champions that let you just become better at the game, let you be more confident in the fights, control the AI better, and just learn more about how to fight well. All of those things combined, I think Valkyrie is absolutely fantastic champion. And I think there's an argument to be made with her moving up to spot number 2, possibly. Anyways, speaking of spot number 2, we have ever long-lasting Nicholas Fury. I think for quite a while he was the top skill champion, and then in unexpected turn of events he became top 2 champion, where he remained top 2 for a very long time, and I think he potentially could, because Nick Fury has just so much in his kit. He's yet another one of those champions where you can see that whoever did design him did not hold back. It's surprising that he has made it in the game in his current format, because of the amount of abilities that he has and the amount of potency that he has, especially once you put on deep wounds. This man with deep wounds is an absolute menace to society, and people underestimate his damage output such a ridiculous degree if you do have like your deep wounds active. All of his kit put together, he just works everywhere. He is one of the staple MCOC champions, one of the MCOC faces, so to speak. Because we do see him everywhere. Like Battlegrounds, pretty much every meta he's present. Even if he doesn't necessarily work offensively, he's still a great defender. In many of the metas, he's still also a great attacker that can trick your opponents. We do see him in Alliance War defense as a staple mini boss or somewhere on a tricky node, because he's one of the champions that gets kills often. We do see him in Alliance War offense. We do see him in questing, pretty much everywhere. Right, obviously, where do you even start with the guy? First, I suppose, first things first, his stats, very solid. Everything in his kit with decent values. There's no real bad stat in there. He has very high crit rate on his base as well. And then just going on by his abilities, virtually everything you do bleeds the opponent. He has access to passive bleeds as well. Then he has access to miss and evade ability bypass, debuff shrug offs, damaging and non-damaging, the ability to go completely unblockable and stay unblockable the entire fight. Obviously, not many people know that he also has an auto block counter. When hitting into auto block, Nick is stun immune and has a 100% chance to inflict bleed. That is significantly useful as well. And with his Nick Fury's Fury, he has one of the highest damage outputs in the game, period. And yeah, so here we are. That's all there, combined with obviously Disorient on his level 1, Stun on his level 2, significant amount of damage on his level 3, and then his Sig ability, which effectively gives him the second life, which is the main reason why he is a good defender. And with that, it's very hard to compete with Nick as a champion. Especially if you just look at the abilities on paper, but also if you look at how much he does for how many people across the entire game. And again, I'm not saying that, Nick Fury is better battlegrounds attacker than Valkyrie. He isn't. But he's a solid battlegrounds attacker. I'm not saying Nick Fury is better Alliance War attacker than Valkyrie. He isn't, but he's still a very good Alliance War attacker. In questing, I think they can battle it out, but every single one of the defensive abilities there, definitely go towards the Nick, as well as kind of like less than standard applications. For instance, Nick Fury is one of the only champions in a game that can purify passive effects, or most of the passive effects, by having his life model decoy destroyed. And also, his life model decoy allows for a ton of safety net, and also very kind of like specific interactions where, you get your life model decoy destroyed on purpose, then carry on nuking the opponents very quickly. And I haven't even mentioned his synergies, because he does have some of the best synergies in a game. He has a synergy that empowers Fury potency. He has generic synergy that improves attack rating of all of your hero champions. He has synergy that can make virtually any or most champions recoil friendly, which is still super useful for questing. He has an evade synergy with Quake and Ant-Man, which provides you with a tremendous safety net. So the man just has it everywhere. Like every single area of the game, no matter how you look at, both on offense and defense, in every game mode, plus synergies, dude's a monster. So what can be better than Nick Fury? Well,
approximately 2% of my body mass is fat. Allow me to show you what 350 pounds of muscle is capable of.
350 pounds of pure muscle, less than 2% body fat, and also bald. But this one has both of his eyes. Right, and it just is. And I have every single time I do these ranking videos, and every single time I put Kingpin up highly, people come at me as in like, oh, you're full of shit, Kingpin sucks. And nobody ever tells me why. Or it's like, oh, this champion is better than Kingpin. And nobody ever tells me properly why. And I always go for pretty much a simple, serious explanation. He's a guy that does not necessarily look super impressive on paper when you break down his abilities. You take a look at Valkyrie, she has more. You take a look at Nick Fury, definitely has more abilities. But whatever Kingpin does works for him. If you take a look at Kingpin in Alliance War, one of the best Alliance War attackers, hands down, to a point he's often blacklisted. Solid defender with his massively increased combat power rate, and obviously abilities to go unstoppable and shrugging off debuffs. Battlegrounds, one of the best overall Battlegrounds offensive and defensive champions. There has been like maybe one meta where Kingpin was super hard to use, and even then I still did it because it was worth it. And that was the meta with Cold Turkey node, where Kingpin basically got half of his health ripped away because of debuffs placed on him. And he was still useful there, not just on defense. I think there has been like one meta maybe where I didn't run Kingpin. Or if that was the meta, then I didn't run Kingpin for half a week and then put him back in for the second half of the week. And he just works. Be that Safeguard, be that any other BS nodes. Kingpin goes brr. And he is overall one of the best Battlegrounds champions. With how many matchups he takes, within how many metas he works, I would argue that Kingpin so far has been the best Battlegrounds champion, both offensively and defensively, especially dual purpose champion, 100%. Right up there with Hulkling probably. But even then, Hulkling had more metas that he had to sit out, or where he was borderline unusable. And again, as a defender, great at wasting time. In many metas, he becomes significantly difficult due to his ability to put debuffs on himself, and that thus triggers stuff like Power Snack and whatnot. Not Power Snack, but Conflictor and Masochism and so on and so forth. And yeah, he's arguably the best, or let's say top 3 Battlegrounds champion thus far, period. One of the best Alliance War champions. And he's one of the best champions across the game in questing and everything else. Because he doesn't need his hood synergy to just completely purify anything. His level 1 is insanely powerful with that massive attacks reduction and defensive ability accuracy reduction. The point where you can use him super easily against, things and Korgs and whatnot. You can eat level 3s with him. I think I have an Alliance War video where I had 2 of these level 1 degens on opponent. I was throwing a heavy attack and I ate special 3 from opponent, losing like 4% health. He's massively chunky. Has access to very good damage in generic situations and insanely good damage if he gets extra debuffs placed on him. Has access to super long and super reliable Unstoppable. Is one of the hardest hitting level 3s in the game. And people kind of sleep on that level 3 as well, but he's a very, very powerful level 3 there. And yeah, what do you want? Oh, right. Oh, on top of it, his regeneration rate, yes, is halved, but cannot ever be modified except poison, so none of the petrify effects or anything really affect him. Do the monster. And again, it does not look super impressive on paper. He doesn't have gajillion abilities. He doesn't need to. Drugs off everything, gains a ton of damage. He reduces opponent's ability accuracy to a point where you can easily maintain 1 to 2 degens on opponent at all times. So basically they have 0 or 35% ability accuracy. And they're taking damage over time at all times. So he has access to damage over time. He has access to Unstoppable. Access to buffs. What do you... The man's a machine. Trust me. The man is a machine and the best skill champion in the game. And I'd argue one of the 5 best champions in the game. Alright, that said, let me know what you guys think. Here is going to be the list you compare by side. So Kingpin and Nick Fury have not changed places. Valkyrie has moved up. Kate is new to the list, coming in very high at spot number 4. Shang-Chi has lost 2 places, so has Masakra. Then we have Crossbones in spot number 7, Zemo 8, Mole-Man at 9, and Falcon at 10. That is it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will catch you later. Bye. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about